The Honourable Member for North Island Powell River.
Well, thank you so much, Madam Speaker, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here to talk on this particular bill, Bill C-353. And I have to say that there's a lot of moments in this place where I think about the specific challenge that we have as legislators. When we look at the human condition and what's happening in the world around us, and we have to find a way to create legislation that will hopefully help and be supportive. And so I will be supporting this piece of legislation into committee. I do have some concerns about it, and I think that what we need to do, of course, is the important work in committee to make sure that any of those concerns are addressed, and hopefully we can see folks work together to get to the best possible bill. But, Madam Speaker, I have to say it makes me think of my many years working with the newcomer community in the work that I did before being elected. And I can remember sitting with people who were facing this terror of having a loved one be taken, of not knowing what was happening to them, of wondering every day if today would be the day where they would hear something that would let them know that their loved one was safe. And I think for most of us, we can't imagine what that reality would look like. And I think about what a responsibility it is when you become an elected member of Parliament. And when those things happen, how you often have to sit powerless with your constituents, watching things unfold and knowing that you are doing everything you can, and we still don't know what the outcome is. And when I was reading through this particular bill, it really reminded me of my dear friend now in the riding. Her name is Jan. And this is a completely different circumstance, but it resonates with me, the similarity. I remember her chasing me down in a change room. And I think, one of the fun things about being a politician that I don't think you always hear about is when you become a public figure, sometimes you have the most interesting conversations in the oddest places. But her granddaughter had been stolen, was in another country, and they had been trying everything they could to get her home. And it was terrifying for that family because they didn't know if she was safe. They knew she was very young. And, I remember in that moment thinking to myself, if I was a grandmother having this experience, I would also follow somebody into a change room to make a difference for that loved one. So I really appreciate deeply the intention of this bill. There are some clear questions that I have around providing PR for informants and their dependents. And I think we really need to address the issue of exploitation and how we can keep those people safe in those circumstances. I think what is so important is that when people are in that vulnerable state, when they're afraid, when they're stressed by a political interference, unlike anything that most Canadians ever experience, we want to make sure those people are kept as safe as possible. And we need to be talking about sufficient support for the families of victims and making sure that when we're going through some of these vulnerable times, the supports are really there. And Madam Speaker, we may think that they are there, but I can promise you a lot of the supports are not there, and people are left to wrestle with profound agony and pain. And the supports are not there to help move forward. And I think that we have to look at some of these important things about which incentive programs would the minister create, whether hostage taking and arbitrary detention should be put together. There's just some questions that I definitely have as we go through this process, and I look forward to having meaningful conversation and making sure that we have experts. Again and again in this place, one of the things that I'm really grateful as an MP is that we don't have to be the expert. We can have experts come in, walk us through these really challenging things, and provide feedback that help us make really good decisions. And it makes me think of, in the work that I do in my riding, one of the things that I've really been provided is expertise from my own riding on particular issues. I learn so much from constituents as they guide me with their expertise. So I think in these particular issues that are very complex and far-reaching, we need to make sure that there's no unintended consequences. Because what we don't want to see, of course, is legislation to be put in place and then see some serious unintended consequences happen, and then we're behind the ball trying to get that dealt with. But we do know right now, I think we're all very apprised of what's happening in Israel and in Palestine. There's a lot of agony and pain. It does remind me of my dear friend Mary, who fled Germany during the time of the Holocaust, how she survived and so many of her family's members did not. And she told me that she didn't believe in God anymore, but she still prayed for peace every day. And when I look at this piece of legislation, I just think about her intention, what she did to help herself go through such a hard crisis, to lose so much. And I think we all have to remember that when we can't find solutions that are peaceful, the price is far too high. And one of these, of course, is knowing that you have people who are taken into hostage, and you're waiting when people are released again and again to hear their name. And, you know, I was reading some articles of some people who have had their loved ones taken in Gaza as hostages. And every time people are released, they're holding their breath, hoping that their loved one's name is on that list. And so when we look at these things, I think we have to remember that we must do all we can to create peace, and that we must do all that we can to find safety for all people, and that we should pray for peace unceasingly. I think this bill needs a bit of work. It needs a little bit of study. I think the experts were really helpful, will be very helpful. We know that there are some good recommendations from the New Democrats that date back to a foreign affairs study in 2018 the report was called Strengthening the Canadian Consular Service Today and for the Future, which sought to prove instances of hostage-taking that have not been fully incorporated in this bill. So we might be able to look at some of those things, hear from the experts. It's key things like creating a mechanism to track the extent to which consular services meet service standards, meaningfully improve communications with families. I think that's absolutely key. We need to make sure that families are kept up to date as much as possible. This is the most terrifying period of their lives, most likely, and keeping them informed in a really practical way will make a big difference. And the decriminalization for private payment of ransom. Madam Speaker, I think of the people that I love the most, and if I had $1 to pay for their lives, I think I would do it. So we need to really bring this back to the humanity. So I will be supporting this bill. New Democrats will be supporting this bill. We'll hope to see some really good and strong work in committee to make it a stronger bill, to make sure that there's no unintended consequences that will have a poor impact on people who are facing these realities. And I just want to send my love out to everyone who's ever had this experience or is living through it right now. We have to remember in all the work that we do, humanity is at the core of it. And it is hard sometimes when we are divided to find our common humanity. But I think it's important that we remember how human people are and how vulnerable they are and how scared they are. And not silence people, but to bring together the places where we can be human. Thank you.